What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix. I'm Ryan Coop here with a very special video this time around, honoring one of the top quarterbacks from the past decade in the CFL. Yes, the great Michael Reilly announcing his retirement this past week. 11 seasons in the CFL, two-time Grey Cup champion, one of the top players in the game. So exciting to watch. One of the most gritty quarterbacks. Tough quarterbacks, just outstanding players in the CFL over the past decade. Hanging up the cleats and moving on from his CFL career. I thought, Canadian Football Fantasy Fix, what better way could we possibly honor the career of the great Michael Reilly than to take a look here today through his 13 best fantasy performances, because he sure had a lot of high-end point totals. He was more often than not, a go-to piece potentially for your fantasy lineup. And, he wore number 13, so we're going to count down the top 13 of his performances and take a look at them here today. And let's dive right in. Let's take a look. Start off with the 13 through 9 top performances of his career. 13th best, Week 17, 2019 versus the Toronto Argonauts. 32 fantasy points. If you're putting up 32 points and that's the 13th best game of your career, yeah, you're a pretty darn good quarterback. 276 yards, 5 touchdown passes in this game, really adding to the total there. One of a few times throughout his career, Reilly throwing for a whopping 5 touchdown passes. Number 12, the Week 20, 2017 end of season game versus Saskatchewan Roughriders. 32.7 fantasy points for him in that one. No passing touchdowns that time, but 3 rushing touchdowns, making the big total for him there. 294 yards passing in that one. Week number 6, 2017 is next up on the list, facing the BC Lions, who he would go on to finish out the rest of his career with. 33.6 points there. 24 of 33, 412 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. He did have 2 picks, but 2 touchdowns on the ground as well. Another fantastic game there. Number 10, hitting the top 10 spot. We go all the way back to 2013, Reilly's first main year as a starter. By the way, I should qualify, these stats I go back to since he became a starter in 2013. I know he's been around the league a couple years before that in a backup role. Really started crunching these in the elite years he was a starter. And then we go back to Week 8 versus Toronto in 2013, where he put up a 34.5 point game, throwing for over 500 yards, 511 yards on the day, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a couple of carries there. So a big yardage game there from Michael Reilly. And rounding out the first 5 here is we go to Week 1, 2018 versus the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, where he puts up 34.6 points, 408 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 2 TDs on the ground. If I remember this game correctly, and going back to, I believe being at this game, this was, I remember a monstrous pass to Darrell Walker that added to his totals here. I also remember this being, a game that was delayed by lightning storms multiple times and went on for about 6 hours. What a game here. What a memorable game, and certainly a fantastic fantasy performance to go along with it. Moving on to the next 5 best games of his career. Week 18, 2015 against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The year he does go on to win the Grey Cup with Edmonton. 34.7 fantasy points in this game for him. 377 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also picked up a touchdown on the ground. Number 7, we've got Week 12, 2016, a rivalry game with the Calgary Stampeders, crossing the 35-point mark in this particular game. Over 45 passing attempts, over 400 yards passing, some touchdowns through the air, and again contributing on the ground. And this was one of the things that I think, throughout the height of his career, Reilly was really one of the best quarterbacks when it came to the ground game. You know, a lot of teams these days, you see the starter come out and the backup come in to go do the short yardage plays or the rushing touchdowns. Nah, Michael Reilly was out there, pounding it in the end zone himself and picking up those totals, and that's huge for fantasy quarterbacks, and that certainly helps a team as well. If he can stay healthy while doing so, which I think he did for a good chunk of his career. But a great game there once again. We go to the next one at number 6. Week 7, 2017 versus the Hamilton Tiger Cats. 35.8 fantasy points in this one. Again, some more touchdowns on the ground. 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 touchdowns through the air. Just over 317 yards. You know, not a huge passing game in this one. But again, his ability to run, his ability to punch it into the end zone, making a difference there. Now we get into our top 5 games, and we go to 2018 here. Week 10 versus the Montreal Alouettes. Over 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns through the air, added another one on the ground. 30 yards and carries there as well. 36 fantasy points is the total. Number 4. Week 18, 2017 versus the BC Lions. Once again, 38 fantasy points, 397 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Those ground touchdowns sure do help the totals. So as we move right into the top 3 right away, common themes here, the years, kind of 2015 to 2018 really were the peaks of Reilly's career there in Edmonton. He does go over to BC for 2019. We saw one game, crack that top 13 from his time in 2019 so far, when he went over to the BC Lions. But unfortunately, the last couple of years, he didn't necessarily have the protection on the offensive line there as he did in Edmonton, especially that 2019 season. And a bit of a down year or 2 for Reilly, but still definitely putting up some admirable numbers. But really the peak of his career, you see a lot of these, 2017, 2016, 2018 kind of games in his top performances. As we move on to the top 3, and we'll go and take a look at them one at a time here. Number 3, Week 7, 2018 versus the Montreal Alouettes, crossing the 40 fantasy point total in this one. Very rarely will you see a player hit the 40-point mark. I believe in 2021 we did not see that happen once. Kenny Lawler of the Bombers was the highest, I think, at around a 38-point total. Nobody crossing the 40-point mark. Well, Reilly's 3rd best game was a 41.2, so it's only going to go up from here. With the final 2. In this one against Montreal, 415 yards, 4 touchdowns through the air, and a rushing touchdown to boot. Another one of those days with everything seemingly going right for Reilly. Number 2, we go to a playoff game here back in 2015, the West Final against the Calgary Stampeders. Of course, Edmonton does go on to win this game, goes on to play in the Grey Cup against the Ottawa Red Blacks, and Reilly capturing the 2nd Grey Cup of his career, I believe first as a starter, putting up 41.8 points in this game. 2 touchdowns on the ground again, 3 touchdowns through the air, 370 yards, a very fine completion percentage, 31 of 39. Fantastic day here to lead his team to a Grey Cup game where, I remember seeing that Grey Cup in 2015, and real gutsy performance, if I remember correctly. Reilly late in that game to lead his team to the Grey Cup championship, and certainly a performance like this in the playoffs is going to help you get there. And finally, the number 1 game of Reilly's career fantasy-wise, shattering most totals of any players over the course of the past decade. I believe there may have been 1 or 2 higher than this. It's Week 13, 2018 versus the Calgary Stampeders, where he put up 48.2 fantasy points. A monstrous game here of nearly crossing the 50 mark. 397 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. almost 50 rushing yards, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. That is the top game of Reilly's career. So many fantastic fantasy performances. It's an interesting, a way to capture the career, to take a look at these. And, I've crunched, like I said, every game he's played since he took over as a starter in 2013. Over that span, 136 games for Reilly, 2,707.7 fantasy points, which is an average of 19.9 fantasy points a game, I believe. That average was right there would have been the highest in the CFL among quarterbacks this season if he hit that average, or pretty darn close at least to that. Over that span, 136 games, 74 of them over 20 fantasy points, 18 of them over 30, and yes, you saw them at the top of the list there, 3 games over 40 point total. Fantastic career. Can't say enough of good things about, Reilly on the field, off the field. I know I've heard so many good things about him. He's a great interview. He's got a great hat game. Gonna miss all the different Reilly hats. And really just, been a highlight of the past decade in the CFL. So a very well-deserved retirement, a heck of a career. I do hope he makes it into the CFL Hall of Fame at some point. And we wish him nothing but the best in retirement. And looks like things will turn over to the young Nathan Rourke as the starting quarterback in BC with Reilly gone now. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm excited to see that as well. But once again, a happy and well-deserved retirement to number 13, Michael Reilly. That's it for this particular video. What's coming up next here on the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix? Stay tuned. Tomorrow I will have another video out for you going over all of the CFL news from the past couple of weeks. I was, intending to do this last Friday with the schedule I had planned to stick to. Last week kind of got away from me a little bit due to a busy work week. But I've been compiling all of the news from around the CFL. I've got it almost all ready to go. Tomorrow we will go through it all, get you all caught up, because we are just a couple of weeks, less than 2 weeks, I believe, at this point, away from CFL free agency kicking off. Stay tuned throughout next week as well, in the next 2 weeks, hoping to have plenty of more content for you along the way. Do all the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't. Let me know in the comments section your favorite Reilly memories from his career and most memorable games to you. I would love to hear about it, or just your memories of Michael Reilly on the field, off the field, and let's honor his career. Very fantastic career for him. Of course, you can let me know in the comments section as well what you would like to see from off-season content. I'm flexible. I'm open to discussing anything CFL or CFL fantasy related, so we can certainly plan future episodes around that. Follow me on Twitter as well, at CooperTrooper42 on Twitter. A link to that's in the description. It starts with a K. And if you want more weekly CFL content, you can check out a weekly podcast I do called the Canadian Football Countdown. You can find it on Twitter at CF Countdown Pod. You can also find it on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Right now, doing a off-season series of 2021 season deep dives, looking team by team at the 2021 season with some great guests along the way. Most recent episode covering the Montreal Alouettes. Stay tuned for which team is to come next week there as well. So check all of that out. And as always, thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.